Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the old world. I hope you're all doing well, and today, my friends, we're back with a showdown between the Empire and Slaanesh. It's going to be Balthazar Gelt and his Mantide taking it to the forces of Inkari. Now, as far as the build goes, trying to mix up the playstyle of the Empire a little bit. Granted, this map is very good for the Mantide against Slaanesh. You just have tons of spears and bodies to kind of blockade some of these choke points, and it's going to make it very tough for the Slaanesh mobility to get around to your missiles. Granted, they do have Furies and different spells that they can use on your backline missiles, but this map is certainly very good for this playstyle. But yeah, Empire typically does rely on like wagons, and that's really kind of been the core of the meta for the Empire is wagons, and insert a couple other units based on what matchup you're in. But I do think with some of the cost reductions that the Empire saw recently, yes, they're kind of minuscule. It's like 25 gold here and there. But when you're bringing like, almost 20 units, it does add up. And you're getting a couple extra units on the battlefield potentially. And it can make a difference. So what we're doing is we have a combination of spearmen with shields, and the reason why you bring shields against Slaanesh is because they have higher melee defense. So we have these spears. We do also have some swordsmen. The secondary row is going to be Sigmar's Sons and Flagellants, and this is one of my favorite additions. I know people have been asking for a long time, how can we make Warrior Priest one of the most iconic units in all of Warhammer Fantasy work in competitive multiplayer? Well, you mix them in against lightly armored rosters, right? So Slaanesh, for the most part, light armor, and the Soulfire Bombardment is a very, very good spell against light armor. You get him in the middle of a blob, you pop this, it will do substantial damage, and then you also have the Banner of Eternal Flame, which does give 8% base damage to nearby units, and really they're not bad support characters. One of the reasons why you don't see double Witch Hunter, double Warrior Priest more often is because the Empire, the only caster lord they have that can allow you to bring double hero is Balthazar Gelt, and he's not like super strong in a lot of matchups. I mean, he's niche and has his applications. I would say against Slaanesh, he's not like super ideal, and I know you can bring a caster character as your lord, but then that would take one of your hero slots. So hopefully someday the Empire gets like a death caster. If they got Elspeth von Draken or something, that would be super cool, because that would open up a ton of different hero playstyles, like Elspeth plus double, Captain, double Warrior Priest, double Witch Hunter. Pretty exciting, but anyways, I digress. Crossbowmen into the Sunset. They're what you want to bring. Huntsmen are better against large targets, but crossbowmen are a better generalist unit. Their DPS is much higher against like infantry and things that obviously aren't large. And they're decent against large as well. I mean, especially considering that Inkari is lightly armored, most of the roster is. Free Company Militia, also amazing. Their pistol shots, you don't really need a lot of armor piercing, so they can do some work. Now, one of the issues I might run into in this build is if Slaanesh had come in with, let's say, some sort of armor, like Chaos Warriors. But in reserve, I do have the Sunmaker. I also have two Greatswords. Greatswords will defeat Slaanesh Chaos Warriors, I think. And they did get cost reduced, so that's also nice. But the idea is just to kind of block up the alleys for Slaanesh to get into the back door and let the Mantide just kind of pour over them with just a hail of arrows. So in the backfield, double Free Company Militia coming out. And I have to say, this has kind of been one of my power fantasies for a long time in Total War, is being able to play the Empire as like a very infantry-based army with like, having some elite components in reserve, but mainly the core of my army being troopers. So it's very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to kind of exploring the meta of this in different matchups and seeing if it can be made to work. Because Empire's front line isn't like god-awful if you bring some of the unbreakable stuff. I mean, you can only bring one Sigmar's Sons, unfortunately, but anyways, going to be blocking off the choke here. So right here you can see two of my troopers, making sure no Hellstriders going to be able to get around. And on this side, the Brave Warrior Priest is going to be leading the Sigmarites into battle against the Devoted Marauders of Slaanesh and the Cultist, who's obviously looking to corrupt some of these guys, but they see only Sigmar on their sites. They're not going to be corrupted by that stuff. So Crossbow is getting good damage, even into the shielded units, and the Warrior Priest is going to be getting in there as they meet the Heretics head on, and it is going to be a duel of fates, but the Warrior Priest might help tip the battle in the favor of the State Troopers here. We'll have to see. Balthazar Gelt going to be coming over. Really wanted to win on this objective, so I do overcast the Final Transmutation here. That's going to be nailing these units. We also see a Soulfire Bombardment going down, so nice little burst of damage. Meanwhile, Slaanesh and Inkari is going to be diving into the backfield, slicing shards going down. I do start to dodge with one of them, but Inkari is able to get in there, and normally Greater Demons of Slaanesh are extremely risky here, because they're just huge targets, and the Empire does have a lot of good shooting into these type of units, so the Crossbow is going to be forming ranks, while the Warrior Priest and the Sigmar Sons and Flagellants holding very, very well. Cultist of Slaanesh, of course, is a Mortis Engine, also a caster, has some other abilities, but the Empire Knight's going to be coming in. That's the best tier cab I brought. The thing against Slaanesh and Warriors of Chaos is Hellstriders are their most overpowered unit, so if you don't bring any good targets for the Hellstriders, you really mitigate a lot of their effectiveness, right? So Empire Knight's going to be screaming in. Lance is couched for Sigmar, baby! Going to be charging in and forcing the Greater Demon of Slaanesh back, which is going to be taking a hail of bowfire and gunfire as it does retreat. Now, as far as the value goes, we're trading very, very well. On this side, it's been more or less a full rout. Slaanesh has been pushed back here by the brave warriors of the Empire. Warrior Priests, of course, giving a little bit of support. Demodettes were summoned, but we are just kind of cutting those back. And now we are going to be getting some Chaos Furies diving into our back lines, and the Empire Knights should be able to dispatch of them pretty easily, and also Free Company Militia. pretty good in combat. Honestly, Free Company Militia could probably fight off a unit of Furies and do just fine. Here we do have the Shrine moving back, and it looks like it is going to be another Slicing Shards coming down here. No, that's the Warrior Priest there with the Bombardment, which didn't do a ton of damage, but they weren't like surrounding him. They need to be like really trapped up on the unit to get the effective usage of it, but again, I think he's a nice support piece, and if your opponent wants to focus fire them, they're pretty cheap, and it's not like a huge deal. But as far as the backfield goes, the Man-Tide is still going strong, and I still have these 2 units here. So the Man-Tide probably going to push up here against the Devoted Marauders at some point, and the 2 Empire Knights have been able to kind of sweep the backfields. Obviously, I stacked up here a little bit, wasn't quite paying attention, microing on the other side, so Slicing Shards might be kind of nasty, but I do notice it at the last second. So thankfully, it's like a long wind-up spell, because that could have been a lot worse. Now, sending the Empire Heavy Cabin to keep the Cultists of Slaanesh and its Mortis Engine from getting in. The Warrior Priest here wavering, taken down by Inkari. Obviously not terribly surprised about that. And it looks like Slaanesh is going to be redoubling its efforts here on the side to try and get his objective back, but we are maintaining a 5.2 to a 2.5 value lead here. As Balthazar Gelt flies in, drops a final transmutation on top of the Greater Demon of Slaanesh, just trying to keep it back, really, because that's a big, expensive centerpiece. I do think the more optimal builds that Slaanesh would use against the Empire would probably be a much wider build with like a cheaper Lord and things like that. But, you know, opponent and I are just kind of messing around in a couple of these practice games and trying out weird builds and things like this, like a super wide Empire build and, you know, all that stuff. So, seeing how it goes. Cultists of Slaanesh here are going to be getting blasted by the Free Company Militia as well as the Crossbowmen, and you can see that thing is getting taken apart. It itself only has 60 armor. It does kill the last of the Flagellants, but they fought to the bitter end. And the Swordsmen over here on the side, able to push back the Devoted Marauders with a little bit of help from the Gunpowder. Obviously, the Empire, 3 things make it great: Steel, Faith, and Gunpowder, and we have all 3 in this game, which is quite good. Balthazar Gelt leading the troopers as the men of the Empire push back these heretics. Maybe perhaps they were once men of the Empire as well, but not today. Grenade launchers, really good against Slaanesh as well. Honestly, I think like Man-Tide style builds, just a massive core of like just troopers backed up by grenade launchers and basic archers, I think is actually quite good against Slaanesh. One thing that you could get caught off guard with a little bit is if they do come in with, let's say, a bunch of warriors. Like warriors would have been more problematic for my build for sure, but what I'd probably do to tech against that is have Balthazar Gelt bring Plague of Rust. So you could Plague of Rust a warrior and focus fire them with crossbows. Really good slicing charge there. I started to get a little bit comfortable here in this game, but this is probably going to be the end of the road, as Inkari is going to be capped by those Free Company Militia in the back. Not the most accurate shooting, but at that point my opponent does tap out. So very excited to explore this. The map was very conducive for my playstyle, and Pwn brought just too many big targets, really. I think the War Shrine plus Inkari, you just cut those and go wider. Bring like Azazel, and you can bring the other cultists on foot and then add some warriors in there. You know, the Hellstriders, I think he brought some in reserve. Yeah, he did. But they didn't really have a way to get in, and they didn't have any, like, you notice he didn't summon them, right? Well, the reason why he didn't summon them is because there was literally no targets. Like, it just basically state troopers, which they'll trade terribly into. So if you guys are trying to play against Slaanesh or Warriors of Chaos, I highly recommend bringing builds where they just don't have Hellstrider targets. And you do give up a little bit of, you know, map control, but on a small map like Itza or something like that, it's not that big of a deal. Slaanesh gets exponentially more overpowered on, like, bigger maps, like really big maps. Like Black Ark and, you know, some of the newer maps if we're looking at, like, let's say, Border Low Landing, right? Because the speed at which they can maneuver around the map is just insane. You can't keep up with a build like this. But on a small map like this, you know, the Man-Tide, Skaven-Tide, whatever you're going to be doing, it can work. And you guys saw the efficiency of it. Granted, neither of the builds were, like, optimal, but it's still cool to see that, like, Empire can go fisticuffs with Slaanesh and do some work. And here's our reinforcements as well. Great Swords attack against Chaos Warriors, Hellstrider, the same thing, or the Hellstorm. And that's pretty much it. So GG, well played. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I know, very quick domination battle. And ladies and gentlemen, got a lot of fun battles for you in the wings. Stay tuned, and Sigmar bless this ravaged body.